Welcome to the city of the unwritten. A city that's given so much. A city of people who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. A city of makers, entrepreneurs, musicians, artists. A city of laughter, memories, and people who will welcome others in with a cup of heartwarming handmade coffee. A city of people, young and old, working together. People who explore, live, and grow together. But what makes this place special? Being listed year after year as one of the best places to raise a family. Maybe because we have a community recognized for its safe neighborhoods and revered for its low unemployment. A city where adventure is everywhere you look, where you can pioneer your own story. We've opened a new page to write on for the generations ahead. Welcome to Bismarck. Come write your story.
Woo! Morning, everybody. It worked. We're just making sure that you guys were awake. You noticed what was going on up there. That was intentional, right, guys? Yes. Okay, thumbs up. Welcome to 1 Million Cups. I'm Kate. I'm going to be your pre-MC today for the Gamechanger crossover 1 Million Cups. Before we do that, is it anybody's first time here at 1 Million Cups? Raise your hand. Sweet. Welcome. Love to have you here. We're here every week, 9 a.m. with a different entrepreneur on stage, community announcements. So welcome. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. If you do or do not have the 1 Million Cups app, please check in. It helps us figure out who's here. You can give feedback. It really helps us to track who's at 1 Million Cups every week. So get that and check in. I want to thank our sponsors. Do we have representatives from some of our sponsors here today? Raise your hands. Yes, we've got some. Thank you guys so much. Thank them if you see them, support them. They allow us to keep the lights on, get the coffee here, which is extremely important. I could do this in the dark, but I need the coffee. So yes, thank them very much for supporting 1 Million Cups. So if you haven't been here before, what we do is we gather here, we hear from an entrepreneur or a community organization, and basically try and figure out how we can change the face of our community by getting together, sharing these stories, and challenging them, helping those entrepreneurs so that they can grow their businesses or their organizations in our community. So can we change the face of our community by sharing 1 Million Cups together? Carl's not here, so I don't know how many cups of coffee we've had. We've got to be hitting like the 500,000 mark pretty soon because it is our 6th birthday today. 1 Million Cups. Woo! Marlo was here at the beginning when we crawled out of the proverbial, soup, so to speak. But we're one of the oldest 1 Million Cups. We are the first one in North Dakota, celebrating 6 years. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Marlo for being one of our kickoff awesome people. I'll give you 6 pinches when I see you. Remember to use the hashtag 1MCND. We'll have a Q&A panel after the presentation. If you don't want to ask your question on the mic, you can use hashtag 1MCND, and Lakin, who's awesome, will ask it for you. So I think that's it for our kind of housekeeping. What we do next is we have community announcements. So if you have a community event, something you want to let everybody know about it, please come up to the stage and grab a mic.
All right, good morning, everyone. So next week we are taking 1 Million Cups on the road. We will not be here, so if you show up, there will be no coffee, there will be no speakers, there'll be no awesome MC, okay? We're going to Copper Dog Cafe in Mandan. We're just doing a social networking breakfast. So we'll be serving some amazing waffles. They'll be like buffet style, so come check that out. One thing a little different, we're trying something new. They have limited capacity there. So we're asking anybody that wants to go to register on our Eventbrite page. So you can find the event either on our Facebook page, 1 Million Cups Bismarck and Mandan, or by searching that on Eventbrite, okay? One thing, we definitely want to pack Copper Dog next week, okay? So if you do register and you do not show up, I will be tracking this, and you will be publicly shamed, okay? So if you're going to register, please show up, okay? If you can't find it on Eventbrite, reach out to us, message us on Facebook, and we'll make sure we get you in there. So hope to see you there next week. Thank you.
Other community announcements. I know there's a new River and Ranch magazine out. It's just not here yet. So keep your eyes peeled for that, right? No, okay. I have two things real quick. With the Downtowners, we're doing an event called Bismarck Beacon Plugged In. This is an event for new employees through our partnership program. We're going to explore the fun things that you can do after 5 o'clock if you're new to the community. Beanbag League, volunteering with furry friends, Cinema 100. We're going to cover a wide variety of things. So if you have new employees, you know new people in the area, October 18th, you can find it on the Downtowners Facebook page and grab your tickets. It is free. We just want to make sure that we can, I call it friend pimping, but we want to find you some friends here in Bismarck, keep you here, which is important. Also want to mention with the Women's Business Summit, October 22nd, there are going to be some Google workshops that we're helping with, and you can find that on Facebook as well. They're going to fly somebody here from Google to help you with your Google-ness for your business. So check that out. That's October 22nd. With that, I'm going to not double fist it with the mics here for a second. I'm going to introduce, I'm the pre-MC, you're the post-MC, Kayla. Kayla is with Humanities ND and the Gamechanger Ideas Festival. It's an annual event that addresses an issue affecting our community and our world. They feature the brightest minds. That's totally you, Dan. That is totally you. Both world-renowned speakers and local experts to create an environment where curiosity can flourish. This was founded in 2015 through Humanities ND. So I'm going to welcome the person who's going to do the rest of the introduction, Kayla Schmidt.
I'm so excited to be here on our 6th birthday. On my 6th birthday, I got this cool little Barbie four-wheeler, but it took like 4 of the big batteries, so you had to stack at least 3 Barbies on the front or it would tip over. And that was a pretty cool 6th birthday present, but I had to share it with my sister. So I'm Kayla, and I'm with Humanities North Dakota. This is Kevin, because my foot is loose and I'm not supposed to dance. So we're going to talk about the Gamechanger Ideas Festival today. You got a little hint of what that's about, but let's go back to the very beginning. How did Gamechanger come about, and what the heck is it? So first of all, it is sponsored by Humanities North Dakota, formerly known as the North Dakota Humanities Council. Every state has a Humanities Council, as well as the 6 territories. We're funded in part by the National Endowment for the Humanities. You might have heard of the National Endowment for the Arts. We're kind of like best friends, but the arts are what people make that is to look at, and the humanities are what people talk about. That's kind of the easiest way to describe it. Fun fact, Humanities North Dakota, we've been around since the 70s. Who else has been around since the 70s? So it's pretty well established, but you might not have heard of it before, because we were traditionally a grant-giving agency, and it's only recently that we've started to do our own programming. But some of you might be confused about what the humanities are, so let's do a really quick thing. We are not a humane society. We really, really love animals, but if something is going on with your neighbor's horse, please call somebody who knows something about it. I can't help you. We are also not a human services agency, so anything with official documents, blood or guts, we cannot do anything for you. We are very squeamish and bad at filling out forms. So what are the humanities then, if this is what we aren't? We're all these fun things, those little tiny subjects that you probably had a Humanities 101 class back in college or in high school, and you're like, when am I ever going to use this again? There's some pretty big topics there, and these aren't things that you just get to sit down, write the answer, and then hand in your test and go. It takes a little time, a little bit of thinking. Traditionally, we've been using more of the historical aspects. So a lot of humanities programming at the beginning was all about Lewis and Clark, Teddy Roosevelt, Lawrence Welk. Great dudes, they're all dead. How are the humanities still alive today? And so that's why we wanted to establish something that was a little bit more modern and start doing our own programming. Thus, the Gamechanger Ideas Festival. Hooray! Because the humanities really are alive as much as, some of those other things are really important with the human services. We still deal with humans, and we want people to sit down, interact with each other. When the National Endowment for Humanities was created, it's because our nation's leaders were like, everybody's arguing and nobody gets along, and we don't know how to have a conversation. I don't know if that sounds familiar to you or not. Check Twitter this morning. So we really want people to take some time to make the time to actually sit down and focus on these issues. So as Kate said, we are an annual one-day event. There's all kinds of ideas festivals that take place around the nation. There's the Atlantic Festival, there's the Aspen Ideas Festival, Chicago has a really cool humanities festival. But why do we have to go places all the time when we want to see something cool? We really wanted to start bringing people back to North Dakota. There's all kinds of really intense, smart people outside that we want to show Bismarck to, but there's also a lot of people in Bismarck that we want to interact with those folks. So we've been around for 5 years. We change our theme every year, so we pick kind of one overarching theme. We looked at technology one year with John Ronson, who's one of my favorite writers. I was an attendee this year. We also had Jaron Lanier, who helped found virtual reality. I liked it so much that I begged them to hire me, so then I started with our Pulitzer Prize year. So we brought in a bunch of Pulitzer Prize winners, both from North Dakota and beyond. We had Seymour Hersh. He was one of the journalists who broke the My Lai massacre. All kinds of cool people. Then we did Injustice. We had Piper Kerman, whose book Orange is the New Black is what the TV show was based on. We also had a cop who was a rapper and an actor who did a play for us. Then our health and happiness year, we had everyone from doctors and anti-ageism activists and a mortician. And this year we're looking at the American dream. Easy peasy, right? American dream, we all have one. It's October 5th, so that's why we're doing this crossover. I'm really excited that all my two loves, things where I get to talk about ideas, are combining today in one big thing. I cut that off. Anyway, Americans find themselves at a crossroads politically, socially, and economically. So a big question this year is, does this American dream still exist? Can it? You might recognize some of these pictures. This is where the arts and the humanities collide. FDR had this really great 4 Freedom speech where he talked about the 4 big freedoms that all Americans and really, we were like, we're the stand-up guys and everyone should have these freedoms. So he thought we exemplified these really well. And then Norman Rockwell made them very famous paintings. So we're going to turn those on its head and address our own 4 freedoms this year. So we've got, for Freedom from Fear, we have a comedian. Freedom from Want, we have a rags to riches story, but he says the American dream is absolutely a myth, and it's actually a little dangerous. Freedom of speech, we have a professional athlete who's a little bit involved in this kneeling conspiracy? It's not a conspiracy, people are kneeling. But he's been involved with it, but he says maybe it's a little bit different than what you've heard. And then we have an HR representative for freedom of worship, which you might think, oh no, HR, how could they? But really the people who are protecting these freedoms that we hold really dear are in our workplaces. So we like to take things that are historical, give them some context, but then bring them into the everyday. And that's why we have some guests here today, because it's not just those big people we're bringing in, it's also about the community game changers. And they're going to tell you a little bit about how Gamechanger has allowed them to go out into the community even after the festival. We say, here's your day, but we want you to continue to do this after. So we've got Dan Donlin and Tyler Auck. Dan started with our Injustice year. He was the chief of police and let us get some training credits for law enforcement officers. So instead of Handcuffs 101, they got Humanities 101. And then Tyler was also involved in that year. And then after that, they kind of told their story. And they're going to come up here and tell you a little bit about that too. But both of them have continued with Gamechanger, both in our advisory committee and Tyler was actually our Grim Reaper last year. So if you need anybody who's good at lurking, you can let him know. And then we've got Melanie Carvell, who joined us for our health and happiness Game Changer. And so she kind of talked about, where do these very important physical things with our body combine with the very mental things that are the humanities. And she's also come back to be on our advisory committee. So I'm going to pass it on to these folks. They're going to tell a little bit of their story, and then we're going to do a panel, and you can ask me all the Game Changer questions. You too.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you for having us and the opportunity. So we do an hour presentation, and we got 10 minutes. So we'll squeeze this in. So it's
Go.
Go, right? Yeah, go. I'm Dan Donlin. I'm the title change is actually now the cop retired, because I retired last summer from the Bismarck PD, and the retired criminal, an unlikely friendship. So we're both retired. That's good. So I 30 years at the Bismarck Police Department, and when I had my unlikely encounter, an unexpected encounter with Tyler Auck again, it was in 2015, so I was about 27 years on the police department at that point. I worked on patrol, I worked in investigations, I was on the SWAT team for 15 years, and when I was on patrol and investigations, that's when I got to know Tyler in not such a good way. As a cop, we're involved in thousands of arrests. We can't begin to remember all the names of the people we encounter or that we've arrested, but some of those names just stick with you forever. And Tyler Auck was one of those names. Every time I heard that name, I thought, you know, I just thought he's a drug user, he's an alcoholic, he's no good, he's criminal, breaking the law all the time, getting in fights, beating people up. This is what I thought of Tyler Auck at the time. So our connection here is all about drugs and alcohol and the horrific journey that Tyler will talk about of addiction, and then the wonderful story of hope in recovery. But that was not Tyler to me. And I have personal experiences in drugs and alcohol and addiction, family-wise, going back. And so it's affected me very much. And I have a lot of compassion for those that are struggling through addiction and trying to reach that recovery. And so that's personally. And professionally, of course, drugs and alcohol have affected me because I've seen people die. I've seen families destroyed. I've seen people lose jobs. I've seen individuals destroy their lives with drugs and alcohol. The most profound incident that happened to me, however, in my professional career was in 2003 when I was on the SWAT team. We did a search warrant entry into a mobile home in South Bismarck, and the two suspects on drugs and alcohol opened fire on us and shot 3 of my officers. One got injured, and I don't have time to get into the whole story. That turned into a 14, 15-hour standoff, armed standoff throughout the night. And those guys were shooting at us, 2 guys, throughout the night as we were out on perimeter. And that ended when we shot gas into the mobile home in order to get them to come out. Well, they opened fire on us again. There was an exchange of gunfire between me and the subject in the bathroom window, through a bathroom window, and I ended up killing him. So I've had to live with that for my whole life, and I have taken that encounter. Of course, it was ruled as justified. Never wanted to do that in my life. And I've taken that, and I'm teaching law enforcement what it's like to go through a critical incident. This is not TV. It's very difficult to go through at the time what happens, and then, of course, how you deal with that afterwards. So drugs and alcohol have had a profound effect on me. And again, I am now going through my career in law enforcement. I have never even thought of the name Tyler Auck for a long time. Yeah, I did talk about what I thought of you at the time, right?
You did. Thank you for doing that.
Need to repeat that?
Thank you for telling all these lovely people how I was, but you know, and I thought the same. I thought the same way about cops. You know, I hated this man. You know, I thought they're always out to get me. You know, they're after me. They're setting me up. They have nothing better to do because I'm that special. You know, they chase me around. I really didn't see that I was doing anything wrong. You know, they always say, do the next right thing. Well, I always thought the next right thing was, well, it always got you to chase me.
Right, run from the cops.
Yep. But my life of addiction started out from the time I was born. I grew up in a home where addiction was around and other family members that were addicted and all the bad things that came along with that. The first time I ever seen anybody get shot, I was 4 years old. I watched a man get shot in the head out in our yard and watched him get put in a trunk and taken away. I've seen some other horrible things in my life. I started using drugs and alcohol when I was 14 years old, you know, and I was hooked. From that very instant that I added that substance to my body, I was addicted, and I had no control over it at all. And over that lifetime, I had a lot of bad things happen, overdoses, suicidal, from the age of 12. I was sticking a gun in my mouth, really not knowing why, because everything in my life, it seemed normal, but it was really hurting me inside. I've hung myself from a tree with extension cord twice, because I doubled it up the second time and jumped out of the tree, but the extension cord stretched. So I was very suicidal. I counted suicide attempts, and it was probably 6 to 8, somewhere in there, true attempts. So I'm very lucky to be here today. And at the age of 17, I was sick. I was broke. So I thought it would be a good idea to start robbing places. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have a cash register laying on my bed, and really not knowing what I did. And that's when Dan's name came up. His name was on all the reports. I was 17 years old. I was facing 35 years in prison, and they were talking about trying me as an adult. Dan's name was the main detective on a lot of the things. So I really hated this man. But what I hated more than him was myself. I hated myself, and I struggled. I went through treatments throughout my life. I'd go to treatments for all the wrong reasons until 2008. I went into St. Alexis partial hospitalization. I actually walked in on my own, and I started there. I failed miserably for the next 2 years. And there was a time that I really didn't know what I was doing. I was doing it for everyone else in my life, and I was trying to get a girl back, and I really didn't want to do it for myself. And I ended up getting 11 months of sobriety, and during those 11 months, I started to feel something, and it was different. I started sticking my noses in flowers and putting down my gun, and things started to change for me, and then I relapsed, and I checked myself into the Heartview Foundation in 2011, and that was the last day I used drugs and alcohol. And from then on, I started telling my story, because that's what we do in the recovery community. We give back. We just give back and give back. And over that time, I got asked to tell the story at some different events. And in 2015, I got asked to speak at this March Into the Light recovery walk.
So I had not heard the name Tyler Auck in years, probably 15 years or so. It never even came across my mind again. I just figured this kid is on that path to either death or prison. And there's so many that I have seen in my career where they end up. So I'm at this walk that he just talked about. I go down to the walk in South Bismarck, down at the park, and to support recovery, those in addiction and health of recovery. And I went down there. It was a cool, chilly Saturday morning in September. I had my hood up, and I just went there as a representative of the police department. I was the chief at the time, but just to show support from the law enforcement perspective. We are a community. It's not us versus them. We are a part of helping them to recovery. Although they might not like to get arrested to try to find that recovery, but sometimes that's the mechanism and the avenue that they take, which is okay. I was just there just to show my face, show support of law enforcement to those that would recognize me. Well, when I got there, they asked me to if I would say a few words. Well, okay, sure, I can say a few words. So the host just says, our first speaker, and there's about 75 people huddled around in the park, kind of in the shelter thing. They said, our first speaker is going to be the Bismarck Chief of Police, Dan Donlin, and he handed me the mic. Well, I didn't know Tyler Auck was in the back, which then he heard my name.
I was going to run.
Yeah.
I really wasn't ready to face it at that time, but my wife and my kids were there, and it was a long run, so I didn't do it.
And I can see your wife going, where are you going, right? So I said a few words about recovery and how we're partners in this, and that I support, again, from my personal perspective, professional perspective. Really, this is a team effort, community effort in this regard. And then that was it. Then, a little bit of applause. I went where cops feel the best, which is in this room would be behind everybody, so I can see everybody, right close to the door. So I went around behind everybody and put my hood back up and just kind of sat there and waiting for the walk to start. And then I hear our next speaker is going to be Tyler Auck. And here was that name from the past. Loser. It was what? Who? Tyler Auck? And then I sat and listened to Tyler get to speak.
And I got up there and I said, My name's Tyler Auck. I've been sober since January 5th, 2011. And I said, Dan over there used to investigate me. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Tyler.
And then I finished up my speech.
I wanted to run at that point.
And I don't know why I said that. So then I went over to Dan after I was done, and I stuck out my hand, and he hugged me. And
I was just proud. I mean, I had heard a little bit of his abbreviated story of recovery, and I thought, how awesome is this? This guy who was on the path to death, and literally, he skipped a lot of stuff where his friends in Denver threw him in a dumpster when he was overdosing, okay? So this guy was on his path to death or prison. And then I heard a little bit about his recovery, and I just thought, how awesome is that? So I did. I gave him a hug. He calls it a hug. I call it a pat down.
I felt,
this dude
yeah.
was not caring at this point.
I was wondering, did you cops hug when they touch your butt? This is weird, but I accepted it, and we ended up exchanging numbers later on. I sent an email, and we ended up exchanging numbers, and we met for coffee, and we talked. And we talked for a couple hours the first time, almost 3. And over that time, we talked about what we could do for the community, what could we do together.
Yeah. So we've joined together and are doing presentations like this to talk about how two adversarials, one, can come together to work together, but two, that it's just important for him to share the story. I always say I'm just his Vanna White type thing for him, because he is the meat of the story. But I just couldn't believe when we met and I learned a lot more details of his childhood and being, brought up and the hell that he went through, and does not use it as an excuse. This guy, wait, who's your wife? Well, not whose name, but what is your
She's a parole
wife?
officer.
Your wife's a parole
probation
officer.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
we
there's
have
a
her
badge
deep
on my
undercover.
desk. Yep. I thought I'm still being set up. I'm like, you married me to get all this information, and you and Dan are having coffee, setting me up.
Yeah. So before we met for coffee, I had to, because really, I'm going to go meet with Tyler Auck on a Saturday. If any of my cop friends knew this, they'd go, what are you doing? So I made sure I checked the warrant list that there weren't any warrants for him.
I checked the statute of limitations because
Yeah, so we met, and it was just great. And I just thought, who am I to judge a person like this and what they've gone through and walking in their shoes? So we've got a wonderful friendship, let alone if any, my past buddies, in law enforcement ever heard that I had Tyler Auck's phone number, it'd be what? But truly, this guy right now is my best friend. I mean, he is. He checks in weekly with me, that type of stuff. Oh, by the way, while being married, raising a family, while working a full-time job, had taken college courses, and he is a licensed addiction counselor. How awesome is that?
Thank you. I'm still surprised.
So today, when I think of the name Tyler Auck, I think friend, loving, caring, compassionate, a father, a role model who has been through and the victim of domestic violence and has seen a lot and has absolutely crushed the cycle of violence because he does not lay a hand on his child, which is another awesome. So role model, awesome father, just a compassionate, loving, dedicated person.
And when I think of the name Dan, I think of friend, I think of honor, I think of God, I think of dad, I think of husband, I think of community. Because I watch him in the community and how selfless it is. And when he was the chief of police, I mean, it just blew me away. And I strive to be that, and I strive to give back like he has. And it's a beautiful thing, and I'm grateful to walk this path with you.
Thank you in both ways. So together, we are working together to eliminate that stigma of addiction. And I'm going to pat him down one more time.
A little low still.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tyler told me that he thought this was 1,000 teacups. So we're going to meet at 3 p.m. for high tea and beautiful tiny sandwiches. All right, we're going to pass it on to Melanie now, and she's going to talk about how she's a game changer.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be here today and share this time with you and to have the opportunity to promote the festival this weekend as well. Like Kayla said, I'm Melanie Carvell. I've been a member of this community for over 30 years. I grew up in Mott the Spot, where the girls are hot, in case you're wondering. So I didn't go too far from home. My husband Charles was working on a PhD when we got engaged. So we spent a little bit of time in the UK but we're eager to, after he finished that, to come back to North Dakota. And it's been just a wonderful opportunity to be a part of this community. I work for Bismarck Hospital, Med Center 1, and eventually Sanford Health for about 35 years, and just retired from Sanford Health a couple years ago, and now have the opportunity, I feel like, in this stage of my life, to have a little bit more time to give back. I do a lot of public speaking and have been involved in the health and fitness industry for years. So on that note, I'll start off with a little quiz question for you all. So I hope you studied. I know Tyler did, right? And Dan. What an inspiring story. Let's give them a hand one more time. Unbelievably inspiring story. So, you know, I've been preaching on the pulpit, the gospel of health and fitness for years, and so when we think about that, probably the four biggest things that come to mind. So of these four things, which do you think are the most important and the most critical for health? So first one, exercise, right? We like to move it. The second option is stress management. The third option is our connection with other people. And the fourth option, let's see, we have exercise, stress management, connection with others, good nutrition, healthy nutrition. So we know that all four of those are super important, right? And it's pretty hard to pick one, but if you had to pick one of those that was more important than the other three, which would it be? Community, connection. Anybody have any other ideas on what they think is really the tipping point for personal health? Stress management. Nobody's choosing exercise out there? Many of you are right. The number one predictor of good health, body, mind, and spirit is our connection with others. The number one predictor. If you have strong social connections, you are likely to have a 50% better heart health profile than someone who isn't socially connected and has that support. So when we dig a little bit deeper in that, when we think about, we'll pick nutrition, we know how important that is. When we look at people who have been successful, there's an organization out there called the National Weight Control Registry. You can check it out on nationalweightcontrolregistry.org. So this registry has looked at 10,000 people who have been successful at losing the weight, but not just losing it, actually keeping it off. So to be a part of this successful registry, you have to have lost 30 pounds or more and then kept it off for 5 years or more to be a part of this successful group. And when we look at the bright spots, like, you know, why are they more successful than others? What do you suppose is the number one thing in those successful people? Peer support and accountability. When we talk about exercise and trying to be successful because we know how important it is, what's the number one exercise adherence tool? Socialization, right? If we plan on working out and we do it even with one other person, we're going to be twice as likely to show up than if we try to go at it alone, right? And also, if you're working out with more than one other person, you're probably going to work out in an intensity that's 50 to 60 to 70% harder than if you're doing it by yourself. And sometimes I have to remind myself of this because I teach cycling classes for the Y over at Family Wellness in Mandan. And you know, there's different personalities that come at different times of day to work out, right? So I teach an early morning class at 5:30 on Fridays. And those people come in, and all they want is for me to kill them. They just want to be killed. They just want to be killed. They want a super hard class. If you get up at that time of day, you set your alarm for 4:45 or whatever and come in and work out. They just want me to kill them. On Mondays, I teach a class at 8:30. Completely different crowd, right? They come in, and I don't even need to be there. They are just chatting it up, right? They don't need a lot of direction. I'm trying to explain concepts and push them hard, and you know, I could be offended because nobody's listening, or I can sit back and think, you guys chat away, because what's the number one exercise adherence tool? What keeps us healthy? And it's that socialization. Sometimes I sub and teach a 5:30 p.m. class, And they're different as well. They come in and they just want to kill me because they've had so much stress throughout the day, right? So we know how important socialization is. And when we think about struggling with addictions, because obviously it's front and center, our opioid addiction, our alcohol addiction, and I think we should add our technology, our phones to the list with addictions that we're struggling with right now. When we think about phone addiction, you know, it's almost like all the buzzes and beeps and notifications. It's like a slot machine. We have to pick it up and see what we've won, right? And so it's so important to have those tech-free moments in our life for sure. But back to thinking about combating addiction. What's the first thing that happens when you have your first AA meeting? What happens? They partner you with a sponsor, right? So powerful to have the guidance from someone that's walked before you, kind of that same path or just a little bit ahead of the path. But the person who sponsors someone is going to be twice as likely to stay sober themselves because they're reaching out and doing something for someone else. So again, that power of connection. 1 Million Cups is a perfect example of the power of connection, right? To gather together, to support our community. There's so many opportunities to do things online and to do your own learning and catch a podcast and whatever it might be, but never underestimate the power of connection and how it can help your own health, your happiness, and your community as well. So keep coming and keep supporting these kinds of things. My introduction to the humanities and to the Gamechanger Festival was when I got my first copy in the mail of On Second Thought. Show of hands, who's taken a look at this amazing publication that comes out? Check it out if you haven't. I remember getting it at home, taking a look at it, and just being so impressed, super impressed with it, and thinking, wow, what a beautiful, thought-provoking publication. And each time it would come, you know, more and more I would try to carve out a little part of my schedule to just like pour a glass of wine and read this thing from cover to cover because it was pretty impressive. And it was also a vehicle for promoting the Gamechangers Festival that was happening at the time. So I really appreciated the goals of the Humanities North Dakota and of the Ideas Festival. And I appreciated how much the magazine and the articles really encouraged me to maybe step away from my own personal biases and learn about issues that were happening in our state and in the country and in the world, and kind of, you know, look at viewpoints that might be different from my own. So I was really intrigued with it and appreciated it. Last year, like Kayla said, the theme of the conference was the pursuit of health and happiness. So got a call from them and asked them to be involved on the advisory board. And you know, I was very pleased to do so, especially now that I have a little bit more time on my hands and I can give back. And then they asked me if I'd write a column for the magazine, and so I did, and the name of my column was Investing in the Heart of Health and Happiness. And I was pretty honored to be asked and also terrified to think that that I would have the ability to write something for the magazine. So it's been wonderful to be involved, and I'm grateful to continue to be involved. This weekend, I have a small role in the conference. I'm doing a breakout session over the lunch hour at the Hive, where Humanities meets, and I think we have room for about 3 or so more people if you're interested in that. But the topic that I'm presenting is one of my favorite ones. I just spoke yesterday at the North Dakota Hospital Association on it, and I think it's a topic that we so need right now, especially with our current political climate and so much divisiveness in our world right now. And maybe it's always been like that. Maybe we've always been at war. But it seems to me like it's worse than ever. And I think part of it is years ago, we used to have the opportunity to watch the news twice a day, right? We saw it at supper time, and then if we were still awake at 10 o'clock, we maybe caught the news again. And now it's that 24/7 news cycle, and most of it isn't good, right? And it follows us everywhere. So how do we make sense of all that chaos and respond to it thoughtfully? So the topic I'm speaking on this weekend is mindfulness and meditation. And I know how much it's helped me personally in my own life, and I think it's a topic that we sorely need right now as well. So in the workshop, we're going to actually practice some simple meditations. We're going to debunk some of the myths around meditation and mindfulness, and just take that little bit of a time to step back and learn a little bit more about it. How many of you practice any sort of mindfulness practice or gratitude practices? A few of us. How many of you know that you should and you're interested, but you just don't quite know where to start or how to fit it into your already busy schedule? So it's definitely something that can be a game changer, a real game changer for your personal relationships. How much would being more present in your personal relationships change them for the better, right? We are so busy going from one thing to the next, we're almost wearing busy as a badge of honor. We pride ourselves on multitasking, right? But multitasking really is the devil, isn't it? We think we're good at it. Sometimes women think they're better than men at multitasking, and it's not something to be proud of, because we really do want to slow down and be present in our relationships, and also in our work life as well. It make a huge difference. So many times we spend so much time ruminating on what went wrong. Yesterday, we lie in bed at night and we can't fall asleep because of some of the things that have happened during the day. And then we also spend a lot of time worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow. And when we do that, we miss out on the present and really being able to appreciate what's going on today. We'll debunk some of the myths about meditation. People think you have to do it for an hour. Nope, 1 minute is helpful. Even just taking one deep breath can change your physiology. We have that right in our back pocket, the ability to calm our nervous system down with even just one deep breath. Sometimes people think you have to get into an uncomfortable position and chat speak in a foreign language, and that it's this mystical thing, and it really isn't. It's something very simple. Some people think that it is a religious practice, and it isn't. It isn't tied to any one particular religion, although it can be a complement to any faith that you may practice. And sometimes people think that something crazy happens when you meditate. And no, it doesn't. Most of the time, nothing happens when you meditate. But maybe what happens later in the day, if I take a few minutes in the morning to set some positive intentions for the day with a short meditation. If somebody cuts me off in traffic later in the day, I'm going to be much less likely to be reactive. So the most important thing that mindfulness and meditation can bring to us is the ability to create a space between our worries, our cravings, our anxieties, and how we react to them, so we can react to them in a much more thoughtful manner. So I only had one time when I had something kind of profound happen to me with a meditation. And I'll close with this story. But so one of the reasons that I got more interested in meditation again was I was having trouble sleeping. Anybody have trouble falling asleep? Anybody have trouble staying asleep? Part of it is an aging thing as well, I'm sure. But so on this particular night, I absolutely couldn't fall asleep. or I fell asleep, but I woke up at about 2 in the morning and I couldn't fall back to sleep. And I was super frustrated. I knew I had to go to work at 5:30 in the morning, couldn't fall asleep. And so I did my favorite meditation. And my favorite meditation, and maybe it'll become your favorite, is a loving kindness meditation. Is anyone familiar with a loving kindness meditation? So try it with me. So you can start with just your normal breathing, taking a deep breath in and out. And with a loving kindness meditation, you choose 3 intentions. And you can choose whatever speaks to you. I usually will go with, may I be strong, may I be healthy, may I be at peace. So if you take a minute right now to just repeat those intentions to yourself with a deep breath on each of them. May I be strong, may I be healthy, may I be at peace. And as you continue, you widen your circle, and then you repeat those same intentions for people you care about. May Kayla be strong, may Kayla be healthy, may Kayla be at peace, right? And so if you're not asleep yet by then, you keep widening that circle to people that you care about and that you love, and maybe just that you're friends with. And then here's the kicker. If you're not asleep yet, then widen your circle to people that you're in disagreement with. People who are driving you crazy, people who you really don't care about too much, maybe somebody who has completely different views than you do. And you repeat those same intentions for them. May Donald Trump be strong. May Donald Trump be healthy. May he be at peace. Now, I may not agree with him, but he's our president and we need to respect him. And if he's at peace, we're going to be much more likely to have some peace too, right? Or if I'm on the other side of the political aisle, my intentions would be, may Joe Biden be strong. May he be healthy. May he be at peace. And so it's this beautiful meditation where you start with yourself, you widen your circle to those you care about, and then you widen it further to people who maybe you're in conflict with, that you have some angst about. And can you imagine that, like Dan and Tyler were talking about, if we could put ourselves in someone else's shoes? And I think that's what the humanities does for us, right? It opens us up to think about different perspectives, different ways of looking things, and helps us realize our own biases as well. And if we can figure out a way to have more civil conversations, more meaningful conversations, can you imagine how that could be a serious game changer for us all? Thank you so much, and I hope to see you this weekend.
You can take it. Oh, yeah, it's on. Here, I'm going to have you gentlemen go up before me because I'm taking the long route here.
We do have about maybe like 6 minutes for questions. So if we have questions, raise your hand and I will bring you the mic. If you have questions about Gamechanger, the event itself, or for the Game Changers that are up there, please raise your hand.
Thank you so much for being here this morning. This is really good, a good change of pace for us at 1 Million Cups. But my question's for Dan and Tyler. Wondering with how your relationship evolved and the work you've done together, the conversations you've had together over your friendship, how has it changed either your work in addiction counseling, Tyler, or with Dan, with how you approach addicts in law enforcement?
I can start. Tyler has gotten me into my most uncomfortable situation, which has brought me into the jail setting. Here's a former cop going into the jail to tell our story. On the flip side of that, I've gotten Tyler in front of the North Dakota Chiefs and Sheriffs Association, and all the squad cars in the parking lot. But it's really for us trying to break down that barrier of the criminal side that hates cops, and then the cops that sit there and judge the criminals and things like that. Also, we've done a presentation to the command leadership of the North Dakota Highway Patrol. So we're getting out and just really trying to cross into each other's areas to break that stigma down.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, for the addiction piece of it, just understanding law enforcement's piece and with my thoughts on it, not being so close-minded and open-minded on their role in this fight against addiction, because it's huge. They're the ones at the forefront of it all. They're the ones that are taking the brunt of most of it, and they have to take care of themselves too.
Thanks everybody for being here. I'm Dawn, but I'm also on the Gamechanger Advisory Committee. And so I've worked with 3 of the 4 of you on this committee for a while. And I just want, this is more of a comment than a question, but if everybody has appreciated how engaging Dan, Tyler, and Melanie have been today, this is just like a kind of a glimmer of what Gamechanger Ideas Festival is. So if you appreciated how this was run today, make sure to get tickets to Gamechanger, and thank Kayla for the great job that she's done in promoting and coordinating Gamechanger.
Don, your question privileges have been revoked because that wasn't a question. You're out.
I have a quick, okay, so all of you are kind of involved in like the human services, that thing at the beginning where it's like, we can't do that. But how, as working with the humanities, how have you found balance with kind of the humanities are all about, let's sit and think about it, and then, but you guys have to like actually react to real life situations. So maybe if you can speak on a little bit how like Gamechanger and like really sitting down with some of those ideas that might not sit that well with you, but engaging with them in the same way so that human services and humanities can both end up helping humans.
Right. Well, and that's kind of a tough question, I think, but not really. I think that's why you asked it, right? That's what the humanities does. It makes us think, definitely, and I think part of it comes down to we all want to learn to be. We all want to be more compassionate. We all want to be more kind. We all want to develop more gratitude, and we know that these things are so important, but it's taking that compassion and putting it into action when we really say, how can I help? How can I help? What can I do? It's moving those good intentions into actually doing something about them. And it's not easy to share difficult stories like Tyler has, but it's when we take those ideals, I think, and really try to do something about them. And these guys are a perfect example of that. And I think that's what Gamechangers is about, and the humanities is about, is really, we want to be in a community that's open-minded and that can have healthy and civil debates and to look at more than one side of the story. But really taking those ideals that have started long before us and then actually moving them into action. And these kinds of things, and these guys are a perfect example of that.
So for me, humanities meant nothing more than the F I got in college for that course. That's what it was, that and the artsy stuff that I was really not a part of and had no knowledge. So to be asked to be on the board for the first one that I was involved in was I don't remember the exact title, but it was the Injustice. And it was a play on words. It was, it was in justice, the criminal justice system, but it also was injustice. And I had a hard time with even that title because I wasn't part of the justice system, hopefully doing it right, not perfect, but so I struggled with that, but it opened my mind to see different perspectives and really to have Gino up here, the other Piper, the law enforcement officer from Alameda County out in the Oakland area. He's a rapper. He opened for Snoop Dogg. And in fact, he was very famous opening for Snoop Dogg, his group. And when the Ferguson incident happened and the big turn against law enforcement, he was a part of that inner city community that was revolting up against law enforcement. And he thought, if we're getting rid of the bad cops, who are we replacing them with, right? And so therefore, he put himself through the Los Angeles or whatever it was, the academy out there, and the academy instructors out there in the Oakland area knew who he was and accepted him in, and he has become an awesome deputy, and he sees both sides. His play that he does, one-man play, is all about an officer-involved shooting and showing both sides of that equation. Those that hate the cop for what they did, and then the cop that struggles through having to do that. And it's an awesome play. So for me, it was really opening up my mind, and now with this one coming up, I had something to say about on the advisory board about Nate Boyer, who's used to play for the Seattle Seahawks, a professional football player. Well, he's the one that contacted Colin Kaepernick when Colin Kaepernick was sitting for the national anthem, and he said, you know, and Nate Boyer is a veteran. He's a hero. He went and fought for our freedoms. So he sees that side of it, yet he's in conversation with Colin Kaepernick to tell him how he thinks Colin should be protesting, and that was kneel instead of sit, and more as a respectful way of protesting, according to Nate. So to hear that perspective is really going to be interesting for me, hearing from a veteran who fought for our freedoms and risked his life, professional football player, and then tied into Colin Kaepernick, who I personally don't have a lot of respect for, you know. So I'm really going to be open to hearing, you know, that part of it.
And humanities for me, when Dan says, well, what does humanities mean to you? And I thought, right away my brain went to, well, it's good people that are trying to keep bad people from putting people in mass graves. And I was like, what? Wait a minute. And then I thought about it more, and to me, it's we all have a fight. We all have a purpose, and we all have a thought on something that means something to us, and to respect that, and to be open-minded about that. How can I look down upon someone else's fight and expect my fight to go anywhere? So that's what it means to me.
Well, thank you guys so much. Give it up for the panel again.
Thank you.
Kayla, just tell us the deets on how to get, usually we end 1 Million Cups by saying, how can we help the community? We know, go to Gamechanger.
Yeah.
So what are the, oh, there we go. Okay, it's all up there. Sweet. GameChangerND.com.
Yes, go there. You can also get tickets at the door, but here's a cool little discount code if you go online. But then, yeah, interact with us in as many ways as you can. Come to Game Changer on the day. If you can't, we have all kinds of programs throughout the year as well, and also just read books. That's pretty much it. So
it's this Saturday.
This
Get
Saturday.
your tickets. It's at the Bell.
At the Bell, I forgot all the details.
Okay.
9 to 5. 9 to 5, we have some main speakers, we have some interludes. The humanities are informative, but they're also interesting and interactive and fun. So you're not going to be bored, I promise you that.
Sweet. Okay. And next week we will not be here. We will be in Mandan at Copper Dog. Please RSVP and get your tickets if you're going to attend, just so we know we've got enough waffles and everything for everybody, and explore downtown Mandan. So we will see you next week in Mandan. Have a great rest of your day.